All right, welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Today, we're looking at a piece of legislation that's currently making its way through the U.S. House of Representatives.
Yeah.
It's called H.R.5074, also known as the Kidney Patient Act of 2023.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty interesting one because it aims to actually delay a policy change that could have a pretty significant impact on how kidney disease patients receive their medication.
I see. Okay.
So let's just dive right in.
That's good.
So the big thing here is this proposed delay
Of including what they call oral only ESRD related drugs in the Medicare ESRD prospective payment system.
Yeah. Now, I don't know about you.
But when I first read that, I was like, what?
Yeah, I can imagine.
What does that even mean?
Right.
So maybe you can break that down for us a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So ESRD stands for End-Stage Renal Disease, which is essentially kidney failure.
And the prospective payment system is how Medicare reimburses healthcare providers for dialysis treatment.
Okay, so let me see if I've got this straight.
Sure.
So Medicare, instead of paying for every little thing separately, they're like, here's like a lump sum for taking care of this patient's dialysis.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bundled payment.
Gotcha. Okay, so this act wants to delay certain oral medications from being part of that bundle.
Exactly. That's the crux of it.
Okay, and why 2033? Why so far in the future?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a very long delay.
And it specifically calls out these drugs that are used to control something called serum phosphate in these patients.
Serum phosphate, what is that?
Basically, it's just a measure of how much phosphate is in your blood.
Okay.
And when your kidneys aren't functioning properly, they can't filter out waste products like phosphate as efficiently. And that can lead to a bunch of complications.
Oh, I see.
Like heart disease, weak bones, even an increased risk of death.
Wow. So these medications are pretty important then.
Absolutely. They're critical for managing ESRD.
Okay, but I'm still stuck on this 2033 thing.
Yeah, it is a head scratcher.
And this is interesting, too. The bill says that the delay lasts until 2033.
Or until an intravenous drug for the same purpose gets approved by the FDA.
Right. That's a curious little clause, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you make of that?
Honestly, it's a little bit speculative, but it does raise some questions about the influence of the pharmaceutical industry.
Like lobbying.
Exactly.
I mean, it makes sense, right? If they can keep these oral medications billed separately for longer,
they could potentially make more money.
It's a possibility.
And what does that mean for patients? Could they end up having to pay for these medications out of pocket?
That's a valid concern, yeah.
If providers aren't getting adequately reimbursed through the bundled payment, they might be less likely to prescribe them or pass the cost on to the patient.
And then what about this intravenous drug thing?
Yeah, the fact that the delay hinges on the development of an IV drug is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it could suggest that there's a perception
that intravenous medications are somehow better?
Even though these oral medications are effective.
Right. And we've seen so much advancement in oral medications these days.
It could also be a way to incentivize the pharmaceutical industry.
To kind of focus their research and development efforts on intravenous options.
I see. So it's like a whole tangled web.
Exactly. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Wow. So we started with this bill about delaying a payment policy, and now we're talking about potential out-of-pocket costs for patients.
Pharmaceutical lobbying and even the direction of pharmaceutical research.
It really highlights how interconnected everything is.
It does. Wow.
Well, this has been really eye-opening.
It's a fascinating topic for sure.
It is. It is.
I really appreciate you breaking this all down for us.
My pleasure.
So for our listeners out there, I mean, we've just scratched the surface here.
Of the Kidney Patient Act.
But it really raises some big questions.
Like, is it ethical to delay something that could impact patient access to these essential medications?
For over a decade.
Right.
How do we balance the needs of patients, healthcare providers, and this massive pharmaceutical industry?
Tough questions.
They are tough questions, and I think
it's important for everyone to kind of look into this a little bit more.
Absolutely.
What does your representative think about this bill?
Right.
It's definitely worth doing a little research.
So until next time, we'll
dive into something a little bit lighter.
Looking forward to it.
I think we all need that.
But until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep